Begin today the Gemara on Daf Dalid, Amud Aleph, 11 lines down from the top of the Amud, where it says, B'mai okimte Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, so we're in the middle of a discussion explaining the first Mishnah here in the Pedic that brought different cases where they all are Shtayim Shehein Arba. Regarding Shavuos, the Shtayim Shehein Arba. What are the Shtayim Shehein Arba? So the Gemara explained, the Shtayim is what's mefurish in the pasuk, lahara or lehetiv, when a person makes a shvuah for the future that he will eat or not eat, and then he doesn't keep that, he has to bring a carbon. And then there's Shehein Arba, which refers to a shvuah that a person made regarding the past, saying that he ate it or he didn't eat, and if it's not true, he has to bring a carbon for that. And that's not explicit in the pasuk. Then there's a case of Yediyas Atumah, also Shtayim Shehein Arba. There's a case where a person was Tameh, and then he didn't realize what he was doing, and he walked into the Beis HaMikdash, or he ate from Kachim. So there's the Shtayim that are clear in the pasuk. What is that? What the person forgot was that he's Tameh, in relation to Kachim or in relation to the Beis HaMikdash. What's the Shehein Arba? That he knew he was Tameh, but he didn't realize that he's walking into the Beis HaMikdash or that he's eating Kachim. Okay, and then it also brought the case regarding Shabbos, Yitzias HaShabbos, Shtayim Shehein Arba, regarding Haitzah and Achnasa, carrying in and carrying out on Shabbos, and also Maras Negayim, Shnayim Shehein Arba, which refers to the four shades of colors that there are in the Negayim, two that are clear in the pasuk, and another two that are tailless. Okay, now, but the problem the Gemara has here with this is it's trying to figure out, specifically regarding the first two cases, the Shavuos and Yediyas Atumah, who is the Tana of the Mishnah? Because when it comes to Shavuos, the Gemara brought that Rabbi Shmuel says that you only chayiv a carbon for a person that makes a shvuah and it's false in the case where it's future tense, like it says in the pasuk laharai lehetiv. If it's on the past, you're not chayiv a carbon for that. So how could the Mishnah say shehein arba according to Rabbi Shmuel that there would be 4 cases of a carbon? There are no 4 cases. On the other hand, according to Rabbi Kiva, the case of Yediyas Atumah is a problem. How could the Mishnah say that there are 4 cases that one would bring a carbon for Yediyas Atumah, which would include also cases where he remembers the Tumah, but he forgot where he is. He forgot that he's in the Beis HaMikdash, or he forgot when he's eating the kachim. Rabbi Kiva says in such a case there is no carbon. The carbon is only if one forgets the Tumah, like it says it clear in the pasuk, V'nela mimenu v'hu tameh, that he forgot the Tumah. So what was the conclusion of the Gemara up until this point? To explain our Mishnah, the Gemara tries an approach which goes as follows. The Mishnah follows Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, and with the Mishnah, when it says Shtayim Shehein Arba, the Shtayim Shehein Arba is not the obligations of bringing a carbon in a case where it was B'Shegeg. Rather, the Mishnah is talking about Malkus. Regarding Malkus, it's saying that it would be Shtayim Shehein Arba. The Gemara went through a whole discussion and explained that according to Rabbi Shmuel, Yechayev Malkus for all these cases, and there's Malkus by the Shavuos, Shtayim Shehein Arba. And the Gemara explained that even on a Lav Shein by Maisa, you'd be Chayev Malkus as well. That's what the Mishnah is talking about, and it's all according to the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. That's what the Gemara explained till here. So now the Gemara continues based on this and tries to see how this would apply to the other cases that the Mishnah speaks about. Could you say that the other cases of the Mishnah are also saying Shtayim Shehein Arba, and it refers to Malkus? Says the Gemara, B'maya Kimte. What did you explain? Who is the Tan of our Mishnah? Rabbi Shmuel. Ola Malkus. It's all according to Rabbi Shmuel. And when it says that there's 4 times you'd be chayiv, that would be for Malkus. But the question is, going now to the third case that the Mishnah, or the fourth case actually, that the Mishnah mentions, Maris Negayim. When it says that regarding the colors of Negayim, that there are Shnayim Shehein Arba, meaning there are 4 cases that you would be chayiv. What are those 4 cases? My Malkusika. What Malkus is there applicable regarding Maris Negayim? By Maris Negayim, a person becomes Tameh, and then when he becomes tired, there are Karbanis he has to bring, not Malkus. And says the Gemara, no, there actually is a Malkus by Maris Negayim. B'kaitzitz b'hertai. When a person has a nega, there is a lav that one may not cut off that nega. And therefore it's saying that there are the 4 colors of the Negayim that are actually Tameh, and those are the Negayim that you may not cut off. Which means, as Taisus points out, that if there are colors of Negayim that end up being Tahir, that you are allowed to cut off. It's these 4 that the Mishnah is saying there's a lav that you may not cut them off. What's the source of this lav? Pen va'al. Anytime the pasuk uses the expression, any of these expressions of Yishomer, pen, and al, in addition to the term loy, this is a loisesa, it's a lav. So regarding the negat tzaras, the Torah says the term of Yishomer, benegat tzaras, that you shouldn't cut it off, and therefore there's a lav. And that's what the Mishnah means regarding negat tzaras. But the Gemara says, okay, so by Neged Saras, you could say that there's Malchus. But Yitzias Shabbos, but regarding Shabbos, that it says the cases of a person that's carrying out on Shabbos or bringing in on Shabbos, Hayitzah and Achnose, my Malchus Ike, what Malchus would be applicable when one desecrates Shabbos and carrying on Shabbos? Lav, Shenitin, Lazharas Mises Bezdenu, on Shabbos, one that's Machal Shabbos is Chayiv Misa. And even if the one that was Machal Shabbos, and he got a warning for this, right? You only Chayiv Misa if you get a warning. So let's say he didn't get a warning from Misa. The one that warned him said that if you'd be Machal Shabbos, you're going to get Malchus. But you still wouldn't give Malchus for this. Why? Because in a case where the Torah says that the punishment is Misa, even if he was warned for Malchus, you don't get Malchus. Any lav that the Torah warns and says that if you do this, you get Misa, there is no Malchus, even if the warning was for Malchus. So regarding Yitzias HaShabbos, you can't say that it's compared to the cases before that there's Malchus. Says the Gemara, actually there's an opinion that says that even in such a case there would be Malchus. And this is Rabbi Shmuel himself that we're talking about. The answer is the Gemara, Mishum Hachi, Kamikmina ka Rabbi Shmuel. This is the reason why we're saying that the Mishnah is like Rabbi Shmuel, the Omar, Lav, Shenitin, Lasaras, Mises Bezdin, Loikan Olav. Rabbi Shmuel disagrees with this whole klal. And Rabbi Shmuel holds that a Lav, that the Torah says that its punishment is Mises Bezdin, you could get Malchus for it if the person got the warning for Malchus, then he'll get Malchus. If the warning was from Misa, he'll get Misa. But if the warning was from Malchus, he will get Malchus. And therefore here, when the Mishnah says Yitzias Shabbos Taim Shein Arba, it could be a case of Malchus, similar to the case of Shavuos, and then by the Goyim, that the Gemara just explained, that there would be Malchus. Okay, so now the Gemara is just points out a detail that it was saying here regarding this, that the Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shmuel. So when the Gemara gives this answer, the Gemara says, why must the Mishnah be Rabbi Shmuel's opinion? Because that's the only way to explain why by Shabbos there's Malchus. Says the Gemara, Holav Hachi, if not for this detail here, Kaimeka Rabbi Akiva, would you say that the Mishnah follows with Rabbi Akiva that disagrees with Rabbi Shmuel? But the Mishnah can't be like Rabbi Akiva's opinion, besides this point there, regarding whether a lav that's Mises Bezdin, could you get Malchus for it or not? Rabbi Shmuel says yes, and Rabbi Akiva would say no, there's no Malchus for such a case. But besides this point over here, the Mishnah must be Rabbi Shmuel and not Rabbi Akiva, and this was already brought up before in Daf Gimel, because Kashya Yedias. If the Mishnah would be like Rabbi Akiva, then the case of Yedias Atum Shnaim Shein Arba doesn't make sense. As the Gemara brought before, Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that by Tumah, there's only two scenarios where you bring a carbon. If the person forgot his Tumah when he walked into the Beis HaMikdash or when he eats kachim. But not in a case where the person remembers his Tumah and he forgot that this is kachim or that this is the Beis HaMikdash. So according to Rabbi Akiva, the Mishnah can't be like Rabbi Akiva's opinion because of the four cases that it says by Yedias HaTumah. So the Gemara says, no, actually that question of the Yedias HaTumah, according to Rabbi Akiva, would not be a question. Because Lav Omred didn't. You say that Rabbi Shmuel, we explained that our Mishnah follows Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, and Ula Malchus, and the reason it could follow Rabbi Shmuel's opinion is because we're not talking about Karbonis, we're talking about Malchus. This was the explanation why, when it says Shavuos, Shtaim Shein Arba, it could be Rabbi Shmuel. Even though Rabbi Shmuel says that by Shavuos there's only 2 times a carbon. Laharai lahetiv, only for the future, not for the past. So the answer for Rabbi Shmuel is that we're talking about Malchus. And Malchus there is 4 times. Rabbi Akiva Nami, so if so, the Mishnah could be Rabbi Akiva or the Malchus. And when it says that there are 4 cases where there's a chiyuv by the Yedias HaTumah, it's not referring to a carbon, but it's referring to Malchus. So as far as that is concerned, it's not a problem. But therefore, the only reason that we're saying that the Mishnah must be Rabbi Shmuel and not Rabbi Akiva is because in order to explain how by Shabbos there's Malchus, that's only according to Rabbi Shmuel. That says that even when it's a Mises Bezdin, there can be Malchus. According to Rabbi Akiva, when there's Mises Bezdin, there is no Malchus. Okay, but the Gemara still has another question on this pshat. Again, the basis of the Gemara's pshat over here is that where the Mishnah, when it says Shtaim Shein Arba, the chiyuvim the Mishnah is talking about is Malchus. Not a carbon chatos, it's talking about Malchus. But the Gemara asks, if that's the case, Yidiyos, Hasrois mi bayalei, when the Mishnah speaks about a person that's Tamei, why is it using the term Yidiyos? Which means the person was aware and then he forgot, and therefore it sounds like it's talking about a carbon chatas. Why does it say yediyos hasrois mebayale? The Mishnah should use a term of asrois, which means that the person got warned for what he did. He got warned that he'll get malchus, and we're talking about malchus. Not the yediyos is not the right term for this. So on this, the Gemara says ha loy kashi. If this is your only question on this pshat, then it's not a question, because Tani, Yediyah is the Hasrois. When the Mishnah uses the term Yediyah, which means the awareness of the person, it means the awareness, not that he was aware and he forgot. The awareness here means the awareness because he got warned. He got warned that he's going to get malchus if he goes and eats this kachim or walks into the Beis HaMikdash, and it's that awareness of the warning that he's getting malchus for. That's what the Mishnah means with the term Yediyah. Okay.
So he got a warning and he forgot?
No forgetting. Doesn't say the Mishnah the term forgetting. It says the term yediyos, that he's aware. So the Gemara is saying, even though usually the term yediyos means that he was aware and he forgot, but we could say that the term yediyos means that he's aware as based on a warning, and he was over b'mezid, and he's getting malchus. That's what the word yediyos means in the Mishnah. Okay, but now here the Gemara comes and asks other questions which will refute this pshat. And first the Gemara asks a very simple question: Ihachi, if this is the pshat of the Mishnah, it's talking about malchus. Shtaim shein arba. How could you say that there are 4 cases? And here the Gemara is focusing on this case of Yediyas HaTumah, the cases of Tumah, that there would be 4 cases of malchus. How could you say there's 4 cases of malchus? Tarti hudahavyan. There's only 2 cases of the person getting malchus regarding the Yediyas HaTumah. What are the 2 cases? The person b'mezid walked into the Beis HaMikdash when he's tamei, or b'mezid he ate from kachim. There's no 4 cases. If we're talking about helen, that the person forgot, and it's regarding a carbon, so then you could say there's 4 cases. When he forgot his tumah regarding kachim and regarding walking to the Beis HaMikdash, or he forgot that this is the Beis HaMikdash and that what he's eating is kachim. So there are 4 cases of forgetting. But if it's about malchus, where he's doing it b'mezid, so then there's only 2 cases, kachim and the Beis HaMikdash. So how could it say 4 cases? Additionally, when it says in the Mishnah, when it continues, the Mishnah elaborates afterwards about all the details about the Tumah. It says, that he knew in the beginning, and then he was aware in the beginning, and then he forgot, and then he remembered later what happened, and that the Helam ben Taim, and he forgot in between. So we see clearly the Mishnah is explaining that we're talking about he was aware and he forgot. Halam ala malchus maya vidite. If the Mishnah is talking about the person that's tamei and b'mezid ate kachim or walked into the Beis HaMikdash, why is it talking about a halama that he forgot? By malchus, that's irrelevant. V'su, a third question, the Mishnah goes on to say, it's speaking about the Yediyas HaTumah that a person is chayav a carbon chatas, which is called the chatas of oil v'yayid. But we're talking about malchus. There's no carbon of oil v'yayid there. So therefore, the Gemara says that this whole pshat that the Gemara has a long arichas that the Gemara was going with this pshat is refuted, and therefore it brings a new pshat. El Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? Rebbe, the Tana of our Mishnah is Rebbe that was Mesader all the Mishnayos, and he's Mesader this Mishnah with no name. So therefore, it's Rebbe saying himself, he's speaking, and the Nos of Law Alibed Tanoi. And Rebbe says 2 points in the Mishnah that are according to 2 different Tanoim. Be Yediyos, regarding the 4 cases of Yediyas HaTumah that you chayav there's 4 examples of a carbon for the Tumah, Nasav Laka Rabbi Shmuel. There he explains the Mishnah according to the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel that says that there's 4 karbanas possible there, not according to Rabbi Kiva. And B'Shvuos, Nasav Laka Rabbi Kiva. And regarding the case of Shavuos, where there are 4 scenarios of a carbon, that's only according to Rabbi Kiva, not according to Rabbi Shmuel. So Rebbe is writing the Mishnah Stam, and simply what the Gemara is saying at this point is, it's 2 different opinions. Part of the Mishnah is like Rabbi Shmuel, and part of the Mishnah is like Rabbi Kiva, even though Rebbe doesn't necessarily hold like this opinion and this opinion, but Rebbe is bringing 2 different opinions in our Mishnah. Ravashi takes this a step further. Ravashi says, Amrita l'shmaita kameda Rav Kahana. I said this explanation of Rav Yosef in front of Rav Kahana. V'amali, and Rav Kahana explained and said to me, Loi taimeh, don't only say, like it was quoted in the name of Rav Yosef, that Rebbe, Nosef La Aliba de Tanoi, that Rebbe wrote the 2 halachas of this Mishnah, according to 2 different Tanoim, and the lay, Loi Svirele, and it doesn't mean that he agrees to Rabbi Shmuel regarding one case and Rabbi Kiva regarding another case. He just brought and explained in the Mishnah according to 2 different Tanoim. Rather, furthermore, you could say, El Rebbe Taimeh de Nafshei Mefarish. Rebbe is explaining his own opinion. Regarding Shavuos, Rebbe holds like Rabbi Kiva, that there's 4 scenarios of a carbon, and regarding Yediyas Atumah, he holds like Rabbi Shmuel that there's 4 scenarios of a carbon. So Rabbi saying his own opinion. The Tanya, so now here the Gemara brings the source for this. Where do you see that this is what Rabbi's opinion is? So we learned in a Braisa. Here, this Braisa explains the source of this halacha. As we saw in the Mishnah, there's a unique halacha regarding Tumah that you don't find by any other case where a person's chayav a carbon chatos. There has to be a yediyah betchila. Usually by every carbon chatos, if a person was unaware of an avera that he did b'shoigig, and then later he finds out, then he brings the carbon. It's not necessary. There's no condition that he had to have been aware in the beginning of yediyah betchila, and then there was a helam, and then he forgot. By Tumah, this is the unique halacha of yediyah betchila, and then a helam, and then a yediyah b'seif. So the Braisa says, how do you know that regarding Tumah, you only bring a carbon if he was aware in the beginning, and then he forgot, and then he realizes in the end, and the helam ben time, in between, he forgot. Talmud Laimar, so the pasuk says, v'nelam shnei pamim. It says in the Torah the term v'nelam twice. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. So what is the drasha of the v'nelam that it says twice in the pasuk? So Rashi explains the fact that it says twice in the pasuk v'nelam. So what it's teaching you is one time when it says in the pasuk v'nelam, it's coming to say that helim. What is it that he forgot? He forgot his tumah. That's why it says the term v'nelam. Because in the pasuk it clearly says that v'nelam mimenu v'hu tameh. He forgot his tumah. That's a simple pshat of v'nelam. It's coming to say what the helam is. Okay, but now when it says the second time v'nelam, what's the pshat in the second v'nelam? So over here they had the pasuk quoted on the side of the Gemara. If you look in the pasuk, it's quoted both on Amud Aleph and on Amud Beis. So if you look in the pasuk, it says v'nelam mimenu v'hu yada v'ashem, that he forgot, and then he remembered that what he did wrong. So the way Rabbi Akiva darshans this is, you actually flip around the words of the pasuk. You put the v'hu yada before v'nelam. Because this v'nelam is extra, it already said v'nelam. So his drasha is that you put the v'hu yada first, that he was aware, and then after he was aware, v'nelam. That's how he darshans the second v'nelam. Okay, so from there you see that there has to be a yediyah in the beginning. And Rashi adds the fact that he has to have a yediyah basayf, that he has to have remembered in the end what happened. That's obvious, because if he doesn't know, how's he going to bring a carbon? He didn't realize he did anything wrong. That's how Rabbi Akiva darshans the pasuk. Okay, but Rabbi says in this, ain't it tzarich? You don't need a source to say that this drasha of the second v'nelam and to change the order of the words of the pasuk to bring a raya that you have to have the awareness in the beginning. Because v'nelam, the word v'nelam itself, as is, means meklal, the yada. The term v'nelam means you forgot. Forgot is only possible if you once knew. So that means that there was awareness before. And then in the pasuk it says the term v'hu yada, that he knows. So harei kan shtei yediyos. So in the language of the pasuk you see that there's twice telling you that there was an awareness twice. That means the awareness in the beginning and the awareness in the end. So now, if so, Rebbe goes on to say, so then how does Rebbe darshan the fact that the pasuk says twice v'nelam? According to Rabbi Akiva, the second time v'nelam is coming to teach the yediyah b'tchila, and you change the words of the pasuk, but not according to Rebbe. So why does it say twice v'nelam? L'chayev al helam tumeh v'al helam mikdosh. It's coming to add, the first time it says v'nelam in the pasuk, it says v'nelam v'hu tameh, that he forgot that he was tameh. The second time v'nelam is coming to say that even if he remembered he's tameh, but he doesn't realize that he's in the Beis HaMikdash, that's also a kind of helim that he's chayiv a carbon for. Okay, so here we clearly see in this brayse that Rebbe's opinion is that you chayiv both for the helim of the Tumah and the helim of the Mikdash. And therefore, in the Mishnah, when it says that for Yediyas HaTumah, this Shtayim Shehein Arba, that a person is chayiv 4 times a carbon, this is Rebbe stating his own opinion. Okay, so now it says the Gemara, so Ashkechon bi Yediyas. So we see here regarding this halacha of Yediyas HaTumah, the Islay, Taimed, and Nafshay, that this is Rebbe's opinion that you would be chayiv 4 times a carbon, whether he forgot the Tumah or if he forgot the place in the Beis HaMikdash that he is. And also the same regarding Kochim. So that's 4 cases. Now Shavuos, regarding the 4 cases of karbanis regarding Shavuos, Shavuos Shtaim Shein Arba, which would be 2 karbanis for a Shavuot that he made for the future, Lahara Elahetiv, and 2 karbanis for a Shavuot that he made about the past. And that Rebbe would hold, like Rabbi Akiva, that you chayiv in all 4 cases. The Islay Taimed and Avshay, that this is Rebbe's own opinion. This is what Rebbe holds about this Minolan. How do we know? Says the Gemara Svarahu. Rebbe never said this clearly, but based on what Rebbe says in a different place, it's logical that this is Rebbe's opinion. The Gemara here explains what this logic is. There is a Lishna Achrena, according to some Girsis, that basically says the same thing, just in different words. Lishna Achrena, Ashkecham b'yediyah to Savala k'Rabbi Shmuel. We see regarding the Yediyah Satomed that he holds like Rabbi Shmuel that there could be 4 scenarios of a carbon. B'Shavuos to Savala k'Rabbi Akiva. Regarding Shavuos that he holds like Rabbi Akiva that there are 4 scenarios of a carbon, binola. And the Gemara says Svarahu. It's Rebbe never said it clearly, but as the Gemara here will now prove, there's a svara that this is Rebbe's opinion. What's the svara? So to explain the svara, we have to see what is the source for this machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel regarding Shavuos, whether a person's chayiv only for the future when he makes a shvua and he doesn't keep that shvua, or he's chayiv a carbon even for the past as well. Where is the source of this machlokes? Says the Gemara Rabbi Akiva, that is my time. Why does Rabbi Akiva say that you chayiv for a carbon by a shvua even if a person made a shvua in the past? The answer is because the darish ribuye umiyute. Because Rabbi Akiva darshans the psukim in the Torah with the approach of ribuye umiyute. There's 2 approaches how to darshan the Torah. This is the basis of this whole sugya. Rashi explains this here. One way how to darshan the Torah is what we say every morning, according to Rabbi Shmuel, actually, right? This is the sugya that's explaining the machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, how you darshan the Torah. So the brayso that we say every morning is Rabbi Shmuel Leimer. How does Rabbi Shmuel darshan the Torah? Klal prat. And then klal prat klal. What does it mean, this concept of klal prat klal? Klal prat klal means like this. When the Torah writes a klal, and then it writes a prat, the prat means that it's there to explain what the klal is. So if the Torah writes only a klal, and then it writes a prat, what it means is that the halacha now is limited to what the prat is. Nothing more than because the prat is here to explain the klal. So it's completely limited to what the prat is. That's klal prat. What happens when the Torah then writes another klal again? Klal prat the klal. So then we say that since the Torah added another klal, it's coming to say that it's not only mamish just the prat, but anything that's ke'ena prat, anything that's similar to the prat will be included. That's the concept of klal prat the klal. But then there's a different way how to darshan the Torah. When the Torah writes a klal prat, we don't refer to it as a klal prat, rather it's referred to as a riboy and a miut. And what that means is that the Torah first writes an all-inclusive term, which is marba everything. Then when the Torah writes a prat, it's a miut. Miut means that we're not going to say that the prat is here to explain what the klal is, and therefore it's only this. No, the miut is actually coming to say that we have to minimize that riboy. What do we minimize the riboy to? To be only something which is similar to the miut. So in the hadrashas of klal prat to klal, where you say that once there's a klal prat to klal, the final conclusion is that it's ke'ena prat, it's only something which is similar to the prat, according to the approach that you darshan the Torah, riboy miut, even before you get to the second riboy. When the Torah writes riboy and miut, what does the miut mean? Not that I'm coming to be mefarish, the klal, that it's only this. No, the miut means that I'm memayit. What does memayit mean? That only something which is similar to the miut, that's what the riboy means. That's the pshat of riboy and miut. So now, according to this, when the Torah then writes another riboy, what's the other riboy coming to add? You can't say that the other riboy is coming to say ke'ena prat. That I already know when it says riboy umiyat. Riboy umiyat means that I'm a mayit and I keep things that are similar to the riboy. So when the Torah writes riboy miyat and then another riboy in the end, what this means is amar everything. Because the Torah wrote an additional riboy in the end, amar everything. The Torah did write a miyat in between. The miyat in between is only going to be memayit one case, which is completely not similar to the klal that the Torah said here. So according to this approach of riboy, miyat, and riboy, I'm memayit very little. I'm only memayit one case which is very completely not similar to the klal that it's talking about. That's the concept of riboy and miyat. So how does that apply over here to the case?
So if it's not like the cloud,
yeah.
You don't need a mute for that.
No, even without, if it wouldn't be any miyat at all, then when the Torah just writes a lashon klal, then there would be nothing to be memayit. That it would include every kind of example. Right? When the Torah writes a miyut, and even though it wrote 2 ribuyim, a ribuy in the beginning and a ribuy in the end, but it writes 1 miyut in the middle, that miyut is memayit one case. What's the relevance for this over here in our case? The Gemara doesn't bring the whole arichas because this is later in the Masechta, but over here Rashi brings that the Torah here writes a klal prat klal, because regarding the cases of bringing a carbon, the Torah writes that the Rashi brings the pasuk. You don't have it over here on the side of the Gemara. but the lashon of the pasuk is kisishova. A person makes a shvua, so that's saying a klal or a riboy. Any kind of shvua that you make and it's not true or you don't keep it, you chayav a carbon. But then the pasuk says laharay lahetiv, saying very specifically about the future, and it's giving a specific example, laharay lahetiv. That's the prat or that's the miyut. And then afterwards the pasuk writes again, l'chol asher yevate. Any kind of shvua the person makes. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, this is a klal, uprat, the klal, and therefore we learn out from here that it has to be ke'ena prat. What does ke'ena prat mean? In what way does it have to be similar to the l'hara elahativ? Has to be a shvua for the future. If it's a shvua for the future, there's a carbon. Even if it's not exactly l'hara elahativ, even if it's a different kind of shvua, but as long as it's similar to the prat, then it's for the future. However, Rabbi Akiva says that we dash in this pasuk riboy, miyut, and riboy, and therefore we're marba everything. Even a shvur that's not for the future, even a shvur that's for the past, achalti, v'loy achalti, we include that as well. There's a miyut there. The miyut is mamayit, an obscure case, and a case which is completely not similar. What's that case that you're mamayit? When a person made a shvur on a mitzvah. If a person makes a shvur on a mitzvah, so then that's completely not what the pasuk is talking about, lahare, lahetiv, which is rishus, that's excluded from a carbon. But otherwise, if you dash in the pasuk riboy, miyut, and riboy, it includes that you bring a carbon even for the past. That's the way Rabbi Akiva explains it later in the Masechta. So therefore the Gemara over here says that Rebbe also darshan the Torah this way. So let's see, again, the Lashon of the Gemara here. Rabbi Akiva, my time, what was the basis of Rabbi Akiva's opinion that you have to bring a carbon when one makes a shvua, even regarding the past, because the darish, riboy, and miyut? Because Rabbi Akiva's approach in darshaning the Torah is with the approach of riboy and miyut. And therefore the conclusion is that you chayav a carbon for the past. Rebbe nami darish riboy miyute. We find that Rebbe also approached the Torah and darshan this way of riboy and miyut. Where do we find this? The Tanya, because we learned in the Braisa regarding pidyon haben. What could be used to fulfill the mitzvah of pidyon haben? The firstborn, you have to give the 5 slayim or the shkalim for the kayin. So Rebbe says, bakoil paidin b'chayr. You could redeem the b'chayr adam, that is, in any way. Chutz min ashtaris. The only thing that cannot be used is a document of a loan. If the father of this b'chayr has a document that somebody owes him money, 5 slayim, and he wants to give the kayin now that document cannot be used. It has no value of money. There's no money in this document. It's just that you can collect with it. That cannot be used. That's what Rebbe holds. Now, Rabbanan Amri, however, Rabbanan say, bakoil paidim b'chayr. You could redeem the mitzvah pidyon haben. You could do with anything, but he excludes much more. The Rabbana, that is, exclude much more. Chutz me'avodim. You can't use an eved, which has value, to redeem with it, or shtaris, documents as mentioned, and also karkais. It can't be any piece of land. It has to be movable items. So what's the difference? Why do the Rabbanan say that we exclude much more? Says the Gemara. So my time. What's the reason why Rebbe says you could redeem? Pidyon haben can be done with everything. And the only thing we exclude is the shtar, because darish riboy miyuti. He darshans the Torah with a riboy and a miyut. What does the pasuk say? Upiduyav mi ben chodesh. So the Torah says one riboy that you redeem him from when he's a chodesh old, riba. And then it says be'erkacha kesev chameshes shkalim. Then the Torah says specifically chameshes shkalim, so it's describing that has to be chameshes shkalim, which is a description of coins, and so that's a miyut. And then tifte. It says in the Torah again the word tifte chazav riba, so it's marba again. So riba umiyet v'riba. If you approach the way to darshan Torah is with this rule of riba, miyet, and riba, what does that mean? Riba koil. You end up being marba everything. My riba kol mili. So that means you could redeem the pidyon haben can be done with anything. Or my miyat, and the fact when the Torah says a miyat, what's the pshat of the miyat? You only are mamayit one case that's very different, and that is miyat shtaris. We only exclude a shtar because a shtar has absolutely no intrinsic value whatsoever. The other cases are vadim and shtaris, even though it's not similar to the coins, which are movable items, but it's still something that has intrinsic value. So therefore, if you have to be mamayit something, you only mamayit something which is very different, and that's a shtar. Now for Rabbanan, however, the Rabbanan darshi klali uprati, they darshan the Torah like Rabbi Shmuel, that you darshan klal uprat, and therefore what they say is upeduyev ben chodesh is a klal. The Torah is saying in general that you could redeem in any way. Then it says back kesef chameshes shkalim. It gives the example that it has to be like coins chameshes shkalim. That's prat. Then when it says again tifte chazar v'kolal, klal uprat the klal. So this approach is that we darshan the klal uprat the klal, and according to this approach, The conclusion is that you only are marbe things that are similar to the prat. We're not marbe everything. It has to be similar in nature to the prat. And therefore, ma prat, mufurish, dover metaltal v'gufei maming, just like the prat, which is the coins, money. So that's a movable item and it has intrinsic value. Av kol dover metaltal v'gufei maming. And therefore, you can only redeem with anything that's movable and has intrinsic value of money. And that's yotzu, karkois, and therefore we exclude lands, real estate, she'enan metaltlim, which is not movable, and yotzu avodim, and also excluding a slave, shohukshul karkoi, since we see the Torah compares it to land, and also yotzu shtaris, and we exclude documents of a loan. And the avopisha metaltlim, the documents, even though it's movable items, ain't gufam mammon, but it doesn't have any intrinsic value. So here we clearly see that Rebbe darshans the Torah how? With the approach of ribuy and miyut. And therefore, just like there Rebbe does that, we say the same thing over here, that by the psukim regarding Shavuos, lahara, lahetev, where there's also klal prata klal, Rebbe doesn't darshan klal prata klal. He darshans like Rabbi Kiva, that darshans ribuy and miyut, and therefore you'll be chayav a carbon by the Shavuot in all four cases that the Mishnah is talking about. Amalei Ravina la Meimar. So Ravina asks on this answer that Meimar explains that this is the source that Rebbe holds like Rabbi Kiva. Rebbe dorish ribui miyute. Is it true that Rebbe darshans the Torah in this approach like Rabbi Kiva, ribui and miyut? But for Rebbe kloli proti dorish, we find in a different case that Rebbe actually darshans like Rabbi Shmuel, that you darshan the Torah klal prata klal. Because the Tanya, we learned in the Braise, also a machloikis how you darshan, and this is regarding the case of an Eved. After 6 years, he wants to remain with his master, and then there's the halacha of the Eved Nirtza, that you drill a hole through his ear by the door, and then he can remain until Yovel. And the pasuk says, how do you drill a hole in his ear? So it says Martzeya. It has to be this Martzeya. If you help me with the translation of here, or the pasuk, how do they translate Martzeya? You have it? They don't translate Martzeya.
Any instruments?
No, Martzeya. What's the translation of the word Martzeya? Okay, let's see over here what the Gemara says. When it says in the Torah Martzeya, let's say it's a AWL. How do you say that? All. Okay. So the Martzeya is a all. I'm not sure what kind of utensil this is, but that's Okay. So this is the Martzeya. Ainli ella Martzeya. So when the Torah says Martzeya, it would mean that's the prat. It's only specifically this kind of utensil. Minayin l'rabbis, how do I know that you could include, that you can drill the hole in his ear with other kinds of things? Hasul, asira, different pieces of wood that have a sharp end that you could drill a hole with his ear, or hamachat, a needle, v'hamakdeyach, this is a drill, or v'hamachtev, something that's used in writing to puncture in a document. How do they translate hamachtev? Some other kind of utensil. So how do we know that other utensils that are not exactly this martzeya would be, you could use it as well? Talmud Loimar, so the pasuk says, v'lokachta. In the beginning of the pasuk it says, v'lokachta esa martzeya. That means kol davar shenulkach biyad, anything that you could take into your hands. Divrei Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda darshans that we include everything. Rabbi Yomer, Rabbi says, no, martzeya, when it says in the Torah that has to be this martzeya, ma martzeya miyuchot shal matches. Just like this martzeya is something that it's metal. It's a metal utensil. Avkol shal matches. It has to be, could be something that's similar to it, has to be ka'en. And what is that? That has to also be something that's metal. Now, v'amrinon, and it's explained, b'maikam miflaki. What is the argument here between Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi? So we're going to finish this Indian here. It goes on the next Amid. Rebbe dorish klali prati. Rebbe darshans the pasuk klal prat and klal. So if you look in the pasuk, it says v'lokachta. That's all inclusive, whatever you could take in your hands. And then it says esa martzeya. That's a prat. And then it says v'nasata ba'ozno yubadelas, that you put it and you drill his here and ba'ozno yubadelas. That's a klal again. So that's a klal prat to klal. If it's a klal prat to klal, how does Rebbe darshan? It has to be ke'en haprat. Ke'en haprat is has to be matches. Has to be a metal utensil similar to the martzeya. But Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda darish ribuy umiyute. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda darshans that ribuy umiyut, and therefore he's marba everything. And therefore he adds even wooden utensils, other kinds of things that are not similar at all. We include that as well. And the only thing that we exclude, as Rashi brings over here, is to use some kind of a sam, some kind of a thing, a poison, whatever it is that would make a hole in his ear. That's the only thing that's excluded. So what's the Gemara's question? We clearly see that Rebbe holds that you darshan the Torah, klal prat klal. So then how can you say that he holds like Rabbi Kiva that darshans ribuy emiyat regarding the halachas of Shavuos? Or really we have a contradiction here in Rebbe's opinion. Regarding Pidyon Aben, it clearly brought that Rebbe darshans the Torah Ribi and Miyat. And here regarding the halacha of drilling the ear of the Eved that wants to remain, he darshans the Torah Klal Prata Klal. So what's going on? Says the Gemara you're right, Ba'alma Klali Oprati Dorish. Usually Rebbe darshans the Torah Klal Prata Klal. And v'hacha over here, when it comes to Pidyon Aben, the reason why darshans Ribuy and Miyot is because it's different. Now, if you go back to that pasuk that it says by Pidyon Aben, look back into that pasuk. It's quoted here on the side of the Gemara in the previous summit. It doesn't actually say the Klal Prata Klal in the Torah the way it usually would. It says in the Torah, O Peduyav mi ben chodesh. So that's a klal or a riboy. Peduyav, you can redeem him in any way. And then it says tifta. The second klal, or the second riboy, it says before, right there. And then afterwards it says back, that there's the prat of 5 coins. So usually the klal prat klal is first the klal, then the prat, and then comes the klal. Here it says the 2 ribuyim together, and then the prat comes afterwards. So therefore this is different. That's why Rebbe held that this over here, you don't darshan klal prat klal. As Gemara brings the source to this. As it was taught by Rabbi Shmuel. The Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, when it says in the Torah regarding the fish, the simanim for kosher fish in the water, so in the Torah it says 2 ribuyim together. It says bamayim, shnei pamim. It says twice in the pasuk the words bamayim, and in any pool of water. Then afterwards it says in the pasuk bayamim ubancholim, whether in the oceans or in streams of water. Now, when it says bayam and bancholim, that's the prat, which would mean, it would sound like you only need the kosher signs for a fish to be kosher when it's in yamim and cholim, when it's in such kind of waters that are flowing. How about in waters that are not flowing, like a lake or a puddle or some other kind of water that's not flowing? Do you need the signs for the kosher fish there as well? So it says bamayim twice before it says bayam and bancholim. So in such a case, he says, since it says the 2 ribuyim of mayim and mayim together, ain't that klal prat. We don't darshan this as klal prat. Elo ribuy umiyat. We darshan this ribuy umiyat, which means that we're marba all kinds of waters that the fish come from. It has to have the simanim of the kosher fish. What's the case that we're mamayit? There has to be some kind of a miyat. The miyat is when you draw water from a pit and you're drinking water from a pit. This is Rashi's pshat. When you draw water from a pit, you don't have to check it to see if there's little tiny fish or shratzim that could be in this water and that don't have the simanim of a kosher fish. You could drink the water from a boir. That's Rashi's pshat. That's the only thing that we're mamayit. But otherwise, any fish from any kind of water needs the signs of a kosher fish, the snapper and the kaskeses. Okay, so here we see that in a case where you have the 2 ribuyim together, we don't darshan it klal prat. That's even according to Rabbi Shmuel, and that's why Rabbi said that by Pidyon Aben, because by Pidyon Aben, Peduyov and Tifte come together. Now, the Rabbanon disagreed to this, even over here, regarding this case of Bamayim and Bamayim. Omer Ravina said, Kedomri b'marove, in Eretz Yisrael they said, in the West, in Eretz Yisrael, Kol makom shatamoitz shtei klolis asmuches zel lezeh. When you see the Torah writes 2 klolis, like over here, Yamim or Mayim and Mayim, that is, the Torah writes them together, and then there's a prat, it says Yamim and Necholim, Hatel prat beineyem. It's as if the prat that the Torah writes is written between the 2 ribuyim. And therefore, v'dainon b'klal uprat. We still do darshan it like the klal and prat the klal that you have in the rest of Torah. That's the Rabbanah. But Rebbe disagrees with this, and therefore by Pidyon Aben, Rebbe darshans ribi and miyot. But by Martzeya, where it's a regular klal uprat the klal in the order of the pasuk and the Torah, Rebbe darshans klal uprat the klal. So if so, regarding Shavuos, it should be a klal uprat the klal, according to Rebbe. So the Gemara says, if so, hashtu the omrit Rebbe klali prati dorish. If Rebbe darshans klal uprat the klal. So, Balkarchach, Kashi, Shavuos. If so, regarding Shavuos, you have a question. Because regarding Shavuos, Rabbi will hold, like Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, that we darshan klal prat klal. And it says in the pasuk, what's the prat by Shavuos? Lahara elahetiv, which means only future tense. So therefore, Rabbi's own opinion would be like Rabbi Shmuel, that there's only 2 times that you bring a carbon by a Shavuot, not 4. So why is the Mishnah saying, Shnaim shein arba? Hello, so therefore the Gemara's conclusion about this is, B'Shvuos, this that Rabbi says in the beginning of this Mishnah, Shavuos Shtaim Shein Arba, Nosiv Aliba de Rabbi Kiva. He's saying that only according to Rabbi Kiva. But V'leilei Svirelei, Rabbi Taka does not hold to this. Rabbi holds the Idarshan Klal Prata Klal. So that's the pshat in our Mishnah. It's bringing these different cases, but it doesn't work l'kula alma. Rabbi was saying the Stam Mishnah, and one case he said that he holds taka like regarding Yediyas Satumeh, there he holds like Rabbi Shmuel. But here regarding this case of of the Shavuos of Shtayin Shen Arba, it's not Rebbe's opinion because Rebbe holds Klal Prat. So he brought the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel, which is not his opinion. No, the case of Shavuos. I'll leave Rabbi Kiva. Sorry, it's according to Rabbi Kiva, but he doesn't hold this. Right, the Ribuya Miyat, and he doesn't hold this. Correct.